Tena ingine. So, what is up guys? In front of us is an Audi F5, S5, and it's the B8 generation. That it means it's a 2017 version of the Audi S5. So the S5 shares the platform with the A5, of course, because it originates from the A5, and everything on this car is just the same as found in the A5, except for the performance and some few styling packages that you can find on the S5. One of them is the badging. You can see over there we have the S5 badge, stating out that this is definitely a performance car. So I'm going to talk about the interesting facts about this car. I really like it. I can say that today I'm going to switch sides and become an Audi boy. Moving around this car, you can see the sportback shape that is also found on the RS7, and the spoiler at the back, that very subtle spoiler. It's not that big, very pronounced, it's just a subtle. And then down over here, another difference you can spot with the A5 and the S5 is the exhaust system. So back here is a quad exhaust, and the thing about Audis, when they are quad exhaust, it's actually a real quad exhaust. Unlike Mercedes-Benz have been notorious for setting up fake exhaust systems that are pretty annoying to say. If you're new around here, consider subscribing to the channel, and if you're already part of the family, consider liking the video to help me grow the channel. Let's take a closer look at the wheels that you find on this car. First of all, the spokes on these wheels are very much spaced, exposing the massive calipers. Actually, I should be talking about the front wheel because it's the one that has the real juice in terms of the calipers. So you can see the spacing that exposes the calipers. I believe that will have an advantage of cooling the brakes. And then the S5 badge on the brake calipers over there. It has a 4-port on the front and some, I think a 2-port at the back. Well, you can decide to upgrade if you think that's not enough for you, but that's up to the consumer when you buy them. And then the tires are Continental tires, so that's good when you're moving on the track. Being a performance car, it has a V6T, which means it has a supercharger under the hood. Let us pop the hood so that we can take a look at the engine bay. There's something that I found interesting about this engine bay. One of it is that it is very compact. There isn't so much space in here. In fact, some other vehicles you can maybe even drop something or have some extra space to fit something extra in the engine bay, but here everything is packed closely together. You can see the engine, the way it's sized, spanning from here all the way to here. And then something interesting is the position of these shock mounts, because they are so much within the body of the vehicle. Other cars you find this mount over here, but this one is here. So I think there is some angle when it goes to the wheels. I gender all the way straight like this, it's going diagonally. That's of course improving the stability of the vehicle when it's moving at high speeds. So you can see the way the packing of the engine bay is. And as I've mentioned before, this is a V6 with a supercharger. You can actually see the supercharger here already. This is the supercharger mounted to the engine with that belt that will now give you the extra power. The engine has a pull. I have done some accelerations, however not captured on video, but the engine has a very perfect response. You see, that's the advantage of having a supercharger, in that it gives you instant response, as opposed to having a turbo, which sometimes suffer from turbo lag, especially when you're at a low RPM. Now in the interior of this car, I won't really talk about much because we know it shares an interior with the Audi A5. So there isn't really so much going on in here, but we'll just go ahead and mention a few things that we can notice. And maybe because this is the first Audi that I'm going to review in the channel, we can see the differences between an Audi, a BMW, and a Mercedes-Benz. So here we have the center console with the gear lever saying S5 at the top, and then of course it has electronic parking brakes, and then the start stop engine button over here. Something interesting about Audis is that they have this, and then you can also use this as your start stop. So this behaves like a button, this being my key fob. I can place it in there and press it to get the engine at on, and as well as depressing the brakes to start the engine. To be honest, using the infotainment system in this Audi was a bit confusing for me, especially that I've come from the Mercedes-Benz and BMW perspective. I found it a bit challenging and confusing, especially navigating through the menus. But I'm sure when you are using it for quite some time, you'll get the hang of it. Bucket seats come as standard in the S5, and then they have that S5 branding over here at the headrest. So you can see the way it's a bucket seat with lumbar support, which you can adjust from that button there, and then this should be able to be pulled out to add some knee support for you. So it's a pretty comfortable car. As much as it's sporty, it's also comfortable to use as a daily driving vehicle. At the back, however, space is limited, and that's the sacrifice you get when you have such a sporty car. The space in terms of the legroom, it's limited, given that the driving position that I've set for the driver's seat is at my preference, and I'm 5'8", so someone who's taller than me might have to pull it back, and that will have some compromise in the rear space for passengers at the back. Otherwise, I love how the seats are hugging me, even in the back. They are sort of bucket seats. You can see there, the contour is very nice with some soft leather. And then being a an all-wheel, we have this center hump, which is pretty huge. So you definitely can't place your feet over there. I want to see the trunk space that you'll have in this car, considering that it's a sportback. You can see the way it's opening. It's not the conventional way that the trunk opens in other vehicles. Even the windshield, the rear windshield, goes all the way up together with the boot. So the loading angle and the loading space is pretty plenty. You can see the kind of space you have. Placing in a suitcase or any other kind of luggage won't be much of a problem. And then under storage over here, let's try and open this, where you can have your spare wheel. And Audis in Kenya are really doing well in terms of track performance. In the last event, we had an Audi win, which is the Audi TTS, with a 4-liter engine, beating cars that have V8s and V6s. That was pretty impressive.